Remember when a new cola promised to be healthier because it had no caffeine? Only to taste flat and forgettable? Or the thrill of tearing open a bright green box of high-C Ecto Cooler? A drink that looked more like a Ghostbusters prop than something you'd actually want to sip. And how about the curious pairing of Spam and pineapple? A combo that sounded tropical but left most families scratching their heads at the dinner table? These weren't just foods. They were daring experiments of the 1980s that never quite lived up to their promises. Before we dive in, do us a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Today, on Golden Days America, we're revisiting 11 forgotten foods from the 1980s that failed spectacularly, but still left behind unforgettable memories. Launched in 1982 by Royal Crown, Like Cola was an ambitious attempt to win over health-conscious soda drinkers. Its hook was simple: a cola with only one-third the caffeine of Coke or Pepsi. Packaged in bold red and black cans, it promised the same great cola flavor without the jitters, a tempting idea for adults trying to cut back on caffeine. What made it stand out was its positioning as a natural alternative. Advertised with the tagline, "Made from the cola nut, not from chemicals." At a time when diet sodas were just beginning to grow, it felt like a smart move to carve out a new niche. But there was one big problem: the taste. Consumers often described it as weak, flat, and lacking the kick that made cola enjoyable. People didn't really want less caffeine, they wanted a satisfying flavor. By the mid-1980s, Like Cola had disappeared from shelves, overshadowed by Coke and Pepsi's own caffeine-free versions. Today, it's remembered as another quirky misstep in the cola wars. Proof that even good marketing can't save a drink if the taste doesn't deliver. In 1983, candy makers tried to capture the unique flavor of Dr. Pepper in chewing gum form. The idea sounded fun. Why not enjoy the taste of your favorite soda anytime, anywhere, without needing a can? At first, the novelty caught people's attention, especially among kids and teens who loved the quirky, slightly spicy sweetness of Dr. Pepper. What made it special was the promise of soda in your pocket. The gum was marketed as a way to bring the experience of a fizzy drink into a long-lasting chew, which felt innovative at the time. Some stores even struggled to keep it on shelves in the first weeks. But the excitement didn't last. The gum never truly tasted like the soda. It had a flat, artificial sweetness with no fizz, and the flavor faded within minutes. For gum lovers, it was disappointing. For soda fans, it was a letdown. By the mid-1980s, Dr. Pepper gum quietly vanished from candy aisles. Today, it lives on mostly in nostalgia, remembered as one of those odd experiments that made sense only in the adventurous spirit of the 1980s. By 1984, Crystal Light had become a household name for powdered drink mixes. Riding that success, the company tried to expand into ready-to-drink soft beverages, hoping to compete with diet sodas that were exploding in popularity. The idea was to give health-conscious consumers a low-calorie, flavorful soda alternative right off the shelf. What made it special was the brand's reputation. People trusted Crystal Light as a light, refreshing option, and the colorful packaging made it look like a smart, modern choice. It was marketed heavily as a guilt-free soda swap for those looking to cut sugar. But in reality, the drink didn't live up to expectations. The carbonation was weak, the flavor tasted artificial, and many found it more like watered-down diet juice than a satisfying soda. Worse, customers were confused. Was this supposed to be a soda, a flavored water, or something else entirely? Facing stiff competition from Coke and Pepsi's diet lines, Crystal Light soft drinks quickly fizzled out. By the late 1980s, they had been pulled from shelves, remembered as a failed brand extension that never matched the success of its powdered roots. In 1986, Chef Boyardee tried to expand beyond its famous cans of ravioli and spaghetti with the launch of the spaghetti dinner. Packaged as a quick, all-in-one Italian-style meal, it targeted busy families looking for convenience without sacrificing taste. The idea was appealing: everything you needed for dinner in one simple can. What made it stand out was its promise of classic Italian flavor on a budget. Commercials showed moms serving it proudly at the dinner table, suggesting that a hearty, family-style pasta meal could be ready in minutes. For a short time, curious shoppers gave it a try. But reality didn't match the ads. The noodles were mushy, the sauce bland and overly sweet, and the canned texture turned off many buyers. At a time when frozen dinners and fresh pasta options were improving, this product felt like a shortcut that missed the mark. By the early 1990s, the spaghetti dinner had vanished from grocery shelves. Today, it's remembered as one of those convenience foods that promised a homemade feel but ended up tasting more like a compromise than comfort. Introduced in 1980 by Royal Crown, RC100 was one of the first colas marketed as completely caffeine-free. At a time when growing health concerns were shining a spotlight on coffee and soda, RC saw an opportunity to attract consumers who wanted the cola experience without the stimulant. Packaged with bold, 100% caffeine-free branding, it seemed like a forward-thinking move. What made it stand out was its promise of guilt-free enjoyment. Ads presented it as a smarter, healthier alternative to traditional sodas, especially for families who didn't want their kids drinking caffeine. For a moment, it looked like RC had spotted a new market niche ahead of Coke and Pepsi. Unfortunately, the taste fell flat, literally. Many drinkers found RC100 dull and lacking the bold, satisfying bite of regular cola. And when Coca-Cola and Pepsi released their own caffeine-free versions soon after, RC's small advantage evaporated. By the mid-1980s, RC100 quietly disappeared from shelves. Today, it's remembered as an early attempt to reinvent soda for health-conscious times, but one that couldn't compete once the giants entered the game. In 1985, Minute Maid tried to cash in on the frozen drink craze with its orange slush. Sold mainly through vending machines and convenience stores, it promised the tangy refreshment of Minute Maid orange juice in a fun, icy form. On paper, it seemed like the perfect idea: part soda, part juice, part slushy. What made it appealing was the novelty. Kids and teens loved the idea of getting a cold, slushy-style drink outside of ice cream shops, and Minute Maid's trusted name gave it instant credibility. For a brief moment, the orange slush turned heads. But execution was its downfall. Machines often malfunctioned, leaving watery syrup or rock-hard ice that ruined the texture. The flavor was also overly sweet and artificial, falling short of the fresh citrus taste people expected. Customers quickly grew frustrated, and retailers didn't want to deal with the maintenance headaches. By the late 1980s, Minute Maid quietly pulled the orange slush from the market. Today, it's remembered as a fun but flawed experiment that melted away faster than it could catch on. In 1982, food makers tried to create a healthier dessert by combining lime jello with cottage cheese. On paper, it sounded like the perfect compromise: sweet, tangy gelatin paired with protein-packed cottage cheese. Advertised as light, refreshing, and even good for you, it was marketed toward families looking for guilt-free treats. What made it stand out was its unusual mix of flavors and textures. The neon green gelatin gave it a striking look, while the creamy curds of cottage cheese were meant to add richness. It was supposed to feel both indulgent and nutritious, a dessert that could also be a snack. But reality told a different story. The tart lime clashed with the mild, lumpy cottage cheese, leaving many people puzzled, or worse, Disgusted. Its artificial taste didn't help, and the texture was often described as rubbery mixed with gritty. Even in the adventurous food culture of the 1980s, it was a hard sell. By the mid-1980s, lime jello with cottage cheese had all but disappeared, remembered as a curious but failed experiment in making dessert healthy. For many, it remains one of the oddest food pairings of the decade. In 1984, Hormel attempted to tap into America's growing fascination with Hawaiian-inspired cuisine by releasing Spam and pineapple combo packs. Each package paired pre-sliced Spam with canned pineapple chunks, promoting it as a quick and easy way to make a sweet and savory meal at home. What made it stand out was the idea of convenience mixed with exotic flair. Advertisements suggested you could create a tropical dinner in minutes. Simply heat the Spam, add the pineapple, and dinner was served. For a while, some curious shoppers gave it a try, drawn by the novelty of the pairing. But the combination quickly fell flat. Many people found the clash between salty, processed meat and sugary pineapple unappetizing. The canned format also emphasized everything people disliked about both ingredients: rubbery Spam and syrupy pineapple chunks. Without freshness, the tropical dream felt artificial. By the late 1980s, the combo packs disappeared from grocery stores, remembered mostly as a misguided experiment. Still, they capture the quirky side of 1980s food culture, when companies weren't afraid to take risks, even if the results didn't last long on dinner tables. In 1987, Hi-C struck marketing gold by teaming up with the hit Ghostbusters franchise to create Ecto Cooler. This bright green citrus-flavored drink was splashed with Slimer's cartoon face, making it instantly eye-catching to kids. It wasn't just a juice box, it was a piece of pop culture you could carry in your lunchbox. What made it stand out was its timing. The Ghostbusters craze was everywhere, on TV, in toy aisles, and at the movies. Ecto Cooler gave kids a way to feel part of the phenomenon, and its neon color only added to the excitement. For a while, it became the drink of choice at school cafeterias and birthday parties. But as the Ghostbusters brand faded in the early 1990s, so did Ecto Cooler's popularity. Many parents also disliked its sugary, artificial taste and radioactive green color. Without the franchise tie-in, it couldn't stand on its own. By the early 2000s, the drink was discontinued, though it still carries a cult following among fans who remember it fondly as one of the most fun and strangest juice box flavors of the 1980s. In one of the most bizarre product experiments of the 1980s, tobacco giant R.J. Reynolds attempted to enter the candy market with a product that looked and felt like real cigarettes. These candy sticks were nicotine-free and marketed toward adults trying to quit smoking, offering them a way to smoke without the habit. What made them stand out was their uncanny resemblance to actual cigarettes. Packaged in realistic boxes and designed to mimic the size and shape of a smoke, they were meant to feel familiar to smokers while delivering a harmless sweet. It was an unusual crossover between the tobacco and candy industries. But the backlash was swift. Parents, health advocates, and politicians condemned the product for glamorizing smoking to children. Critics argued that giving kids candy cigarettes could normalize the habit and encourage future smoking. On top of that, most adults found the concept awkward and unappealing. Within a short time, R.J. Reynolds pulled the candy cigarettes from shelves. Today, they remain a striking example of how tone-deaf marketing can sink a product before it ever gets a chance to succeed. Aspic molds, savory dishes made by suspending meats, seafood, or vegetables in gelatin, enjoyed a brief resurgence in the 1980s. Once popular decades earlier, they were reintroduced as stylish party centerpieces, often shaped in elaborate molds with vibrant colors that looked more like art than food. What made them stand out was their visual appeal. Cookbooks and magazines of the time showcased aspics as elegant, Retro chic creations that could impress guests with minimal effort. They seemed like a nod to sophistication, reviving a culinary tradition from the mid-20th century. But while they looked impressive, the eating experience was another matter. The gelatin texture was cold, rubbery, and slimy, clashing with the flavors of meat or seafood trapped inside. Guests often found them strange and unappetizing, and many simply pushed them aside on the buffet table. By the late 1980s, aspic molds had fallen out of fashion once again, this time for good. Today, they are remembered less as gourmet creations and more as oddities, relics of a time when presentation sometimes mattered more than taste. So, which of these failed foods from the 1980s do you remember the most? Maybe you were brave enough to try one of these strange experiments. Or maybe you only saw the commercials that promised more than they delivered. Either way, they capture the spirit of a decade that wasn't afraid to take risks, even if the results were unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. Drop a comment below and tell us which of these flops you remember. Or which one shocked you the most. And if you enjoyed this nostalgic journey through the quirkiest corners of the 1980s. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Golden Days America for more trips back into the flavors, fads, and memories of the past.